book entitled The Importance of Knowing Place Spells, or at least the starts. Now, looking around, there's a few faces I recognise, a few I don't, a few who are sort of a little bit beyond the scope of this talk. But hopefully you'll still find something interesting, and you might be able to take something away and pass it on to people you know who I don't. So I'm going to start sharing my screen. Oh, actually, Alpha, can you? I need to share screen, and then I need to go to.
Yeah, if you're sitting at the bottom.
Yeah, okay, there you go. So hopefully you can see that. So I'm trying to.
Yeah, we can see that.
There we go. Yes, right.
Perfect.
I just move this off to the side. Now I can't see you, so I've moved everyone off so you can see my screen nice and clearly. But I was going to keep a look at anyone wanting to say anything. There'll be quite a few questions going on throughout this, so do shout out, and hopefully I will keep an eye out for people if I don't spot you. Right. Oh, sorry. How do you change? So that's something else. Right. In which case, let's get started then. I can just get in. Sorry. What is a place spell? So the importance of knowing place spells, we need to start by knowing what actually is a place spell. Can anyone tell me? Do shout out, even if you're not entirely sure. Do say. And please remember, you may all be muted. I'll be asking quite a few questions throughout this session. Please remember to unmute before trying to talk.
It's the work of one bell between the treble leading and the treble leading again.
Excellent, excellent answer. That is pretty much bang on exactly what a place spell is. It's what one bell does in between when the treble leads. The treble leading being the lead end. You can take a blue line and you can chop it up into place spells, which is in between when every time the treble lies. Anyone got anything else they want to add to that? Because that was a really good definition, whoever said that. But no, that's pretty much right on the nail there. It is a part of the blue line, which goes from one lead end to the next. The lead end, the treble leading, usually the same thing. There's always exceptions. We won't look at those. The important bit, there is one for each bell. So you have the treble doing it in, say, plain bob minor, and in actually a lot of methods. You have the treble doing its own pattern. It keeps ending up back at lead every so often. And every time it leads, all the other bells, no matter if you're ringing on 3 or 16, they'll all be in a different place. So they all start in a different place of the blue line. And therefore, there is one place bell for every non-treble bell, which is important to remember. So if you're ringing a 6-bell method, you'll find there's 5 of them. Bell for bells 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So they will be referred to as second place bell, third place bell, fourth place bell, and on you go. I think we just had something come in there. The chat. Okay.
Oh, there's me, James.
Okay, right. So that is what a place bell is in short. So, so it's like technical problems trying to get my, here we go. Why are they important? So I have either, here we have break the blue line into manageable sections. So because of my exact age, when I was doing my GCSEs about 15 years ago, BBC were doing a thing called Bite Size, which was a series of TV programs. It was online, and the idea was it broke the GCSE syllabus down into manageable chunks so you could learn it more easily. And that's true of a lot of things in life, especially when you get to really long, complicated methods. You can't just learn it in one hit. You have to sort of break it down and say, okay, here's a bit of a chunk of it, and not learn it in one go. You can learn plain bob minor and things in one go because that's pretty straightforward. But moving on beyond plain bob minor towards surprise minor, but not just surprise minor, you'll find that the lines do get a bit more fiddly, and you might have an amazing brain and you might be able to just absorb it all in one go. But if you break it down into smaller bits, you'll find it easier and you can learn a bit at a time. So show patterns within methods. So you'll see that if you take a blue line, you'll see it dances about all over the place. But if you start to break it down and you know what to look for, you can actually see certain patterns emerging which can help you learn methods. We'll come on to that again a bit later on. And similarly, not just within one method, but between several methods, you often find the similarities between several methods. Again, we'll look at that later. Help with ringing bobs and singles. So I'm sure once you mastered bobs and singles in Plain Bob Minor, you thought pretty good, but they exist in all methods. And you could argue there's a lot to learn for every method. There's not. There's quite a clever way of getting around it, and place bows are key to understanding it. And finally, they allow you to do splicing, which is, we'll come on to that again a bit later. We'll just touch on that because it sounds a bit scary. It's not. Splicing does not need to be scary, certainly not with play spells. So, like before play spells, what did we have? We have this. Can anyone tell me what this is? Hopefully most, if not all of you, will recognize it. There's a bit of a clue at the bottom.
Plain Bob Minor.
It says Plain Bob Minor. It's the what for Plain Bob Minor?
The what?
Circle of work.
Yes, it's the
I
circle
see.
of work for Plain Bob Minor. So
Yeah.
you see, you'll be going around the arrow. It says we're going around in a clockwise direction. And so Plain Bob Minor, you're mostly hunting, but then you do the little bits around the outside as you go around. If you start on the 2, you'll do a 3-4 down, 5-6 down, 5-6 up, 3-4 up, make seconds, and repeat ad infinitum. But you'll see there's some numbers in red circles on the inside of that, and that tells you where each bell starts in the circle of work. So if you're on the 2, you've already just made the second, so the next piece is 3-4 down. If you say start on the 6, you've just done the 5-6 down, so you're in the 5-6 next. So that works fine for very straightforward methods like Plain Bob Minor, but things are going to get a little bit more complicated. And this is, I might to just move you off to the side here. So this is how you go by a blue line. Does anyone here who does not know what a blue line is? Because I've mentioned it a few times already, but we really ought to know what it is before we go any further on this point. So if you don't know what it is, there's no shame at all. Please do ask, and I will tell you all. Are we all confident we know what a blue line is?
All looks very quiet.
Oh, good. I'm pleased to know. So this is the blue line for Plain Bob Minor. So you've got this nice, heavily. Can you see my mouse here? Anyone?
No.
Oh.
Oh yes,
Then-
yes, they are. Yes, got it.
Yeah, sorry, it's up on the number 2. It's the number 2, top left.
Yep.
That's the mouse there. So it might be a bit small, but I'm going to use that as a pointer. So you can see, oh, it's vanished. No, how it's back again. Sorry about this. But you can see we have the blue line going down here, doing its squiggly thing all the way back to the end here. And you'll see we get back to rounds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now the red line, that's what the treble does. As you can see, it does the same thing every time. But you'll notice with this blue line, it's not one long continuous line. It's been split up. So you see there's a 2 there, again in a circle, goes to a 4, goes to a 6, goes to a 5, goes to a 3, and then it would loop back to the 2. So these are the 5 play spells for Plain Bob Minor. So start with a 2 here. You can see you think you'd just do the 3-4 down dodge. That's right at the end here. But before that, you've got to do the lead, and then there's a lie after it as well. And then you do the dodge. So that's it written out in full. Okay, and just so hopefully you can all understand that. Just before we move on, you might be wondering what this is at the side here. That's what's known as the place notation of a method. It's a way of defining it without having to write it all out. It tells you which bells are making a place at any one time, and X means they will cross. So that's I won't go into any more than that. That's just what it is in case you wondered what those numbers were. And then on the far right, you can see that's the grid, which is all the place bells, including the treble, all drawn on top of each other. Unfortunately, my mouse keeps disappearing. I need to keep moving it. But that's what the grid. That's all the bells overlapping, And you can see plain hunt, plain hunt, plain hunt, plain hunt, plain hunt all the way at, then treble leads, boggle makes seconds, and you get 2 bells dodging in 3-4, 2 bells dodging in 5-6. So that's Plain Bob Minor in full. Any questions about that before we move on? Good, we're seeing it's pretty silent again. So this is how you get from the circle of the work to the play spells. So we've seen this lovely diagram before. Here are the play spells we just seen. These do come in a different order at the top, please note. But that second play spell fits in between, goes from where the 2 starts to where the 4 starts. 4 goes from where the 4 starts to where the 6 starts, and he goes all the way around. And that's the 2 diagrams you've seen overlapping each other. So, and so with this, we move beyond Plain Bob Minor, and we start to get into some more squiggly, a little more exciting, hopefully not too scary methods. We'll start with this one, St. Clement's Minor. Who here has heard of St. Clement's Minor? If you show your hands up, hopefully Alf can tell me how many people are raising their hands.
I've got 1
Right,
raised
you.
hand. You can include my own 2. There must be
Anyone
one.
else? Anyone else run it?
Yeah, 3.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem like many. We've got a small handful of us.
Okay, right. Well, how about this is the blue line laid out for us. So it's the same. So you can see 2 stairs start by doing a long dodge on the front. That's 3 right after each other. And then you do some nice hunting around the back, turning around in thirds, and again, and again. And then you got some more squiggly things on the front. And that's them all laid on top of each other. So what can we learn from this straight away? So to start with, we can break it down into chunks, because if you write out the whole thing, it's going to look quite long. But if you just say, okay, I'm not going to learn the whole thing, I'm just going to learn the seconds play spell. So that's just this bit over here. So you can do a lead, do a dodge and another dodge and a third dodge, and then that's a 3-4 up to finish. So I don't feel that's too difficult. So you've made a start straight away by breaking it down, and you can think, oh, that's fairly easy. And then you can add in play spells at a time, and you can finish your 4th play spell. And we can have a look at this one as well. You start by running in, and you do a dodge down, and another, and a third, and you do a lead and a second. Okay, now, and you've got these bells around the middle here, which you're doing some. Oh, sorry, that's for later. Does anyone spot anything about this? Anything at all? So about looking at the patterns, really. Any similarities between bits?
The
If you-
circle of work.
There is no
Plain Bob.
circle of work. You could say there is a circle of work, but it requires a lot more writing out. So it's usually easier to do it as a line than as a load of words. I mean, if figuring out a lot of words works for you, but for methods, finding a line like this online is going to be a lot easier. I mean, I just found this on the internet, so no problem. Whereas finding the circle of work with all the words written out for methods, apart from Plain Bob and Granta, is going to be quite hard. So it's the way forward if you want to go beyond Plain Bob.
You missed the point. It was reverse circle of work of Plain Bob.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear you. Yes, you mean meaning the numbers at the top come in a different order.
There is that as well. But yeah, it's the reverse way around of the work to
Yeah,
Plain Bob.
yes. So you're going. So Plain Bob was the order 2, 4, 6, 5, 3. Here we're going 2, 3, 5, 6, 4. Because they can come in any order. So don't be caught out by that. And also the dodge you'll do at the end, that's also the other way around. They'll do that in the reverse order, because the dodges will always match up to the next play spell you become. Okay. Any other observations? There are no right or wrong answers on this bit.
Well, the 3 and 6 look like the sort of mirror upside down images of each other.
Excellent. 10 points to you, because they are indeed mirror images of each other. So the third starts by doing a lie, then it does a thirds, and then it goes to the back again. The 6, it's that in reverse. It starts at the back, then does thirds, then does a lie, and then goes down to where the 3 starts here. So that's one. They are complete mirror images of each other.
So is 2 and 4 actually.
And so is 2 and 4. I thought someone would get those two first actually, because they're a bit easier to spot. But yeah, 2 does a lead, long 3 dodges up and then goes up. Where the 4 comes down, 3 dodges down and leads. And then you got a little extra bit for the lead end at the end. But don't worry about that. Okay, so you can see 2 and
5 is
4.
pivot bell.
5 is pivot bell, yes. So that's its own mirror. About this point, it's a mirror. And you see it does a lie, makes thirds, and does another lie, and then does a dodge. So we found some symmetry in here. In fact, if you write out the entire line is symmetrical, and that's true of almost all methods, in fact. But we can use that to our advantage. If we know that the 2 starts by doing this long dodge on the front, then there has to be another bell doing the long dodge in the front with it, and that's the 4th or 4th place bell. And knowing that the 2 methods are reversed, so the 2 place bells are reversed to the other, that cuts down on the learning, because you think, okay, well, 2nd place bell is this, and then 4th place bell is just that, but you do it backwards. So you have to learn a little bit more, but not as much more. So that is just about everything for St. Clement's Minor. So now move on to Double Oxford Minor. So about the same difficulty level. Again, they're both plain hunting trebles. So anyone come across Double Oxford Minor before, or rung it, or heard of it?
Heard of it.
Don't know. Okay.
Doesn't look like a huge amount of a number of people here have.
Okay. No, it's another good fun one. So looking at this, what can we see about Double Oxford Minor, if anything? Again, to shout out ideas. Anything strike you about it, considering what we just discussed about St. Clement's?
Trisha, you got your hand up. Is that to say your experience of the method, or you want to ask a question or make a comment?
Yeah, that was just responding to that, raise your hand, but it's
Right.
the same thing. We've got twin pairs, the 2 and the 4.
Yeah.
Are a pair.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely spot on. You say it's again 2 and 4 a pair, and 3 and 6.
5 is the pivot bell again.
And again, 5 is the pivot bell.
So 3 and 6 must be a pair.
So 3 and 6 are a pair. Very good. Very good. Anything else we spotted? So what else did we discuss about the St. Clement's? We said it was the reverse circle of work for plain bob minor. So what's Double Oxford then? So look at the numbers along the top here. Oh, sorry, is someone trying to say something? They were quite quiet.
Same place order as, sorry, I was going through Trisha's microphone, I think. Same
Oh.
place order as St. Clement's Minor.
You're absolutely right. Again, it's the same. The place bells come in the same order. So you do 2, 3, 5, 6, 4 for St. Clement's, 2, 3, 5, 6, 4 for Double Oxford. So again, this one is also the reverse of plain bob minor. So one extra thing though, can you spot a similarity between St. Clement's and Double Oxford?
2 and 4 are the same.
Yes, for both of them, bingo. Which makes learning it fairly straightforward. So if you want to learn Double Oxford, if you already know St. Clement's and you want to learn Double Oxford, well, you already know 2nd place bell and 4th place bell. So you just need to learn these 3 in the middle. And so by chopping it up, you can then start to see the similarities between the methods and how they can fit together. And by learning lots of methods, there is a lot of overlap, and that helps you with the learning of it all. So, and again, just finally, see the grids on the side and the place notation. But here are two nice plain minor methods, which if you're not wrong, then they are good. They're easier than Cambridge Prize Minor, quite a lot easier, in fact. But in both good fun to ring. But again, you can see the similarities between them. But it's they're really, I just chose them because they show a lot of concepts about place bells and how they're useful. So moving on now. Now, I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this one. Maybe a few of you have rung it. So it's not quite to the same scale, but with Cambridge Minor, well, first of all, what does the red bell do? The treble. You might already know this, of course, but if you don't,
Treble
have a look
bobbing.
at what it's doing.
Treble bobbing.
It's treble bobbing. Yes, very good. It takes twice as, and because of that, it takes twice as long to do a lead. Which is why it's on a different scale to the rest. You might not be able to see it as clearly because I need to just squeeze fit a bit more in. But it's when you start to get to surprise, the leads become longer, that place bowls really get into their own, because it's to learn the whole of Cambridge is quite an ask. So if you can split it up, then that becomes very useful. And again, we've got a different order along the top. You go 2, 6, 3, 4, 5, 2 this time. But that's Cambridge. But the interesting one is this next one, Primrose Minor, which is a little unusual, but that's it there. So it's another treble dodging minor, and just take a moment to look at it and see what similarities have we got between Cambridge and Primrose.
Everything.
Everything. Well, if they were everything, it would be the same method. But it's not. It is a different method, and there is something a little bit different.
Just different
Split up in a
place
different
style
order.
order.
Yeah, they come in a different order. Very good. So Cambridge is 2, 6, 3, 4, 5. Primrose is 2, 4, 6, 5, 3. But the place bells, they're the same. You say if you look at second's place bell here on the left, and for Primrose, it's very nearly the same. And then say 6th place bell here, where it then jumps to the middle in Primrose. But again, you go in and then you do this long squiggly bit down the middle. And again there, all 5 place bells are the same. They just come in a different order. The reason why is if you look very closely at the very end for Primrose, you'll see they don't do a dodge, they do plain hunting. You can see more clearly on the grid, actually. Right at the end, you'll see treble leads, a bell lies, and there's hunting through in 4, 5, and 2, 3. Whereas for Cambridge up here, instead you get a bell make seconds, and you get a dodge in 3, 4, and a dodge in 5, 6. And that's why the place bells come in a different order. Now, if you somehow got to learning Cambridge by just learning it as one great long line, to then learn Primrose, you'd have to start again from scratch. But if you've done it by place bells and you've chopped it all up, what you can simply do is ring Cambridge until you get to the end of the place bell, then you don't do a dodge, you do a bit of plain hunt, and you jump to a new bit of the blue line. But then you think, okay, I'm not going to be 6th place bell, I'm going to be 4th place bell. Oh, 4th place bell Cambridge, I know what that is. And off you go and you just think 4th place bell Cambridge. And okay, yes, it does take a bit of practice to get used to, but it's a lot easier than just learning a whole new method and then trying to retain that method in your head, because you can then understand how the methods fit together. So I hope I'm not getting too technical for you, but this just shows how powerful they can be. But moving on, finally, Tricia, you still got your hand up. You wanted to say something? Oh no, okay, you just got your hand up. Right, but now so that's how Placeholders can help you learn the methods. But now we move on to calls, and that's the really, really good bit here. Actually, before we go on, does anyone want to say anything about the method learning or have any questions about it?
Do you stop using the circle of work as the methods get more?
You will do, yes, because
more
in order to do the
difficult?
circle of work, so we're doing the circle of work for plain bob, it's very easy because you just plain hunt the whole time. All you really need to worry about is what you're doing at the lead end. Whereas most of the methods, they'll have all sorts of other things in at the same time. And the amount of text in there is just far too great. I mean, if you are a text learner, then maybe figuring it out, but you'll find when presented with a new method, it will be given to you as a blue line. And there is no one right or wrong way of learning it. As long as it actually works for you, that's fine. And if you want to go through the blue line and actually write out in words what you do, so say I do a dodge with the treble, I do a lead, I make seconds, I do another dodge. And if that works, then fine. But become familiar with blue lines, because to get beyond plain bob minor in ringing, there is no escaping them. It's just how we convey information. But
I see the I see enormous value in the play spells, and
Yeah.
with Cambridge, I've kind of experienced some of that value. But I do find it a hard way to learn a method. I think although you're breaking it, you'd argue you're breaking it into manageable chunks. They're kind of unnatural chunks, I find. I think partly because each chunk is necessarily asymmetric, and also they break in interesting places like dodges, so you don't really see the dodge because the line's been broken where that kind of interesting thing happens. So that's why I find it hard, but I see the value in trying to persist.
Yeah, no, there certainly is, because it's unfortunately what everyone else does. As to where you break them, yes, you often break them at the dodge, because you often have a dodge at the lead end, and that's why you need to break them. So if you want a good way of thinking about that, the dodge always comes at the end of a lead. So say in fourth place spell, for a lot of methods, you'll start by running in. Now it's like you'll have just done the dodge. In fact, you're still sort of doing the dodge, but you don't think of it like that. The dodge is always just sort of the one step back, and consequently, if you have a dodge at a lead end, it'll always come at the end of a play spell. And so breaking it into a natural chunk, is that, say, if you go back a bit, say double Oxford here, just because I've got it here. So you've got a lot of work on the front, and then you move up into 3/4, and you start doing some stuff in 3/4, and then you go up onto the back. So are you saying you'd rather, say, break it here when you pass the treble and go from the front to the middle, and then again from the middle to the back?
I think it's hard to see without seeing the whole blue line written out. But I know when I'm looking at a whole blue line, perhaps the symmetry is more obvious. And
Yes, I agree that play spells are not the be all and end all, and there are other bits of symmetry and other things you can spot in methods. And as I said, it's whatever works for you. But they are useful things to have for reasons we're about to go on to, actually. So please do keep it in mind. Yes, I know you might struggle with them to begin with, but please do. And hopefully they'll start making a bit of sense after a while. And yes, it is a bit arbitrary where it's not arbitrary in the slightest, because it is every single lead end, but it might seem arbitrary at first. For instance, we started looking at these two methods, and you start to look at them immediately and you don't see any patterns in there, but you look for a bit and then, oh yes, there are some patterns. And yes, all the play spells, well, bar one, they are asymmetric, but there's the reverse of it somewhere else in the line. So there is symmetry in there, it's just not right next to you. Yeah, I'm not going to say they're the be all and end all, but they are quite useful. But if that's all, we're now going to move. Oh, sorry.
Say, while you're still on that slide.
Yes, that one.
Yeah. If you were splicing, then you could be going second place every other lead between the two. You still end up in a successful touch, effectively coming back round again.
Yeah. Yeah, you could. We'll talk a little bit more about splicing later on, and I'll come back to that, because that's a good point. But for now, we're going to move on to what I've really been asked to talk about, and that is why the start is so important. This was called the importance of knowing your play spells, or at least the start. Why is the start so important? Now, who here has seen a table like this before? I see at least one hand going up from Margaret.
Oh yes, yes, I have.
Yes, quite a few hands up there. Yes. What to do it a bobbin playing Bob minor, and so I'm sure many of you will have made bobs, and so you know what to do that. So if you would make seconds, instead of you run out and you do the seconds next time. If you would do 3/4 down, you run in and you do the 3/4 down next time. If you would do the 3/4 up, instead you make 4 and do the 5/6 down next time. So that's the table you use to time with the circle of work, because seconds, 3/4 down and 5/6 down, they're all from the circle of work we have. But if we're doing it by the blue line and play spells, it looks like this. So on the left here, much the same. I added the play spell you would become after that. So if you make a second, you become second play spell. Doing 3/4 down, you would become the 4th place bell. If you do 3/4 up, you would become the 3rd place bell. What you do instead, that's identical. You can just flip back, see that middle column does not change. What you do next, that's the bit which is really different. So rather than circle of work, we're instead saying, oh, you're going to become this place bell now. And so quite simply, run out, become 3rd place bell, run in, 2nd place bell, make 4th place bell. That's not that last one's quite easy to remember. Make 4th place bell. It's logical. I like it. So if you start to do plain bob by place bells, that's one for doing it. Now we're now going to look at what you do at Bob's in Cambridge. You might think that's a bit of a way off, but we can still have a look at it and get you ready. So again, we've got the central and left-hand column, they're the same again. So what you would do seconds, instead run out. If you would do a 3/4 down, instead you run in. If you would do a 3/4 up, you make 4ths. What you do next, that's completely different, of course, because we're in Cambridge. We're not ringing plain bob. So this is just the start of the bits of work for Cambridge written out in text speak. In text. So not text speak. I'm sorry, I'm too young. Okay, but okay, so that's what you do if you're doing it on the circle of work and if you just knew the whole line. But if you do it on place bells, it looks like this. So again, I've added the place bells here, and that's far easier to remember. Just run out 3rd place bell, run in 2nd place bell, make 4th place bell.
Yeah.
But does this table seem familiar to you? You have already seen this table once before today.
Yes.
Yes, sorry.
Same as plain bob, yeah.
Bingo, yeah. If you look back there, it is exactly the same table. So instead, run out 3rd place bell, run in 2nd place bell, 4th place bell. So we've made a nice general table which works for both plain bob and Cambridge. You run out 3rd place bell, run in 2nd place bell, make 4th place bell. But it's not just plain bob and Cambridge. This works for any method. Well, certainly any method where you get seconds made and dodging at the lead end. And not just minor too. This works for major, royal, maximus, up you go. So if you know place bells, you then don't need to worry as much about what you do immediately after a bob, because it's the column on the right is the most important. It's what you're doing next. So if you know that in the middle, that's good, fine. But you then need to know what you're going to be doing immediately afterwards when you get back to ringing the method. And if you're confident on place bells and you know what they are, and if you can just remember, run out 3rds, run in 2nds, 4ths, then you should be able to ring calls in any method with seconds at the lead end fairly easily. If you have 6 at the lead end instead, then that's a bit different because the calls affect the bells at the back, not at the front. But I'll let you work that one out. There is, of course, another table for singles as well, and I'll let you work that one out. But it's, again, if you learn how to do this if you learn place bells, you can ring singles in any method because they're the same. Always works like that. So that's why place bells, particularly the starts, are important, because it means if you get affected by a bob and you end up somewhere completely different, if you know the start of a place bell, you can then go and ring it and carry on, ideally seamlessly. Certainly the starts, because you don't have to recall the whole place bell straight away. But if you just remember the start of it, you've then got a little bit of time to think, right, what do I do after that? Or you might find it just comes naturally once you start ringing, but it's the starting bits which are really important. So if you take one thing away from this lesson, take away that knowing the starts of place bells even make bobs and singles a lot easier, and they'll help you a lot in future ringing. So that's all I have to say about the calls. Any questions before we go on to the final slide? I hope I'm not confused you too much.
James,
yes.
Keith here. Can I just say, this may be obvious, but specifically when you become 2nd and 3rd place bell at a bob, it's because you are in second place or third place at the treble backstroke.
Actually, no, that's a very good point you make there.
And you make fourth. You often become fourth place spell when you make fourth, because you are in fourth place at the treble backstroke. That's why you become those play spells. It's the treble backstroke.
Yeah, that's an excellent point there, Keith. That's so obvious I missed it myself. But yeah, you make fourth, you become fourth place spell. Why you're in fourth place, you're where the four starts. And then that's why you become those play spells. You can't start sixth place spell from second place. If you are in fourth place, you are ringing fourth place spell. If you're in second place, you are ringing a second place spell. So that's why, it's because you then run. So, well, I can't really improve on your words there, okay? That's actually very useful to know. So thank you for pointing that out.
In fact, what he's effectively saying, James, is that after the treble's backstroke, the treble is moving off the lead, which is where you start any method anyway. So therefore, that's why it's the backstroke, and not the handstroke. It's the backstroke which is the important bit. And at this point, I could have a very lengthy talk about what the lead end and the lead head are and what people mean and why people get them confused. I won't, though. But yeah, remember, it's the backstroke is the important row. That's the change in between the play spells, which is also ties back to what someone said about the dodges earlier, because you get the dodge goes handstroke, backstroke. So it's the backstroke that you change between the play spells. And because of that, then because the dodge comes before that backstroke, that's why it's considered part of sort of the first play spell, the very end of one play spell, rather than the very start of another one. What happens around the lead end? It seems sort of magical at times. You don't quite know what's going on. I often don't know what's going on, but you learn your play spells and you get out of there as quickly as you can, and you're all right.
I was wondering, I'm looking myself at I'm doing the Cambridge mine, especially on the ringing room at the moment. How do you learn? How do you practice the play spell when you just want to do, when you want to just do thirds, or you just want to do fifths, just to learn each
one play spell? Hard on ringing, ring one lead and stop and repeat. It won't come round, but no one's listening. And it doesn't really matter anyway. It's nice to get touches which come round. So if you're doing it in tower, you can. There is actually a way you can get around that. Actually, I'll come back to that in a very, very short while, because on tower bells there is a way you can do that. But on ringing room, just pick a bell and keep on ringing that one lead, and it won't come around. But you can just stop. There's no rules against it.
Okay, thanks.
If you're doing the 3 on Cambridge, just keep doing singles every lead end.
Yeah, that is an alternative.
Okay.
Right. Anyway, but then finally, we're going to touch on the world of splicing. Now, often made to sound very, very fancy and difficult. Who knows what splicing is? Well, heard of splicing?
Switching from one method to another.
It's switching from one method to it's a piece of ringing in which you have more than one method. And you can't ring these methods at exactly the same time. So what you do is you ring a bit of one and then a bit of another, and you change between them at some point. What is not rounds. So there you go. Now the important thing to remember is that, with the exception of some rather obscure things, the changes happen at the lead end. So you ring an entire lead, or maybe several leads of one method, and then you might stay in the same method, or you might change into a different method. And it always happens at the lead end when the treble is leading, which is where all the play spells start. And you might think, okay, well, how do I suddenly know exactly where to start ringing this new method, especially if I'm ringing the 2, but I'm in 5th place? Well, by knowing play spells, that's hard. That's how. And as you know, for any method, you can go into a new method, and if you're in 5th place at the backstroke, for instance, then you know you're going to be 5th place spell that method. And so then you do have to remember exactly what that play spell is, but it's still a lot easier than going through the line and trying to figure it out in your head whilst ringing. So, so that's in short how splicing works. Yeah, there you go. And there is some very, very hard splice out there, but splicing does not need to be hard. Or you need 2 methods minimum. You can have more if you like, but you need, say, 2. And so you can take plain bob and little bob minor. And if you know what all the play spells are, or even just the starts of the play spells, if you still want to ring Cambridge, if you still want to ring plain bob by circle of work, as long as you know how all the bells start, you can then do some bit of spliced. So here, that's a very simple touch you can try. You do 1 lead of plain bob, then a lead of little bob, and then a second lead of plain bob, and that will get you back to rounds. And that's all there is to it. So if you want to try out a bit of spliced on practice now, that's a nice little touch for you to try. Now, I think it was Phil was asking about ringing play spells repeatedly to learn Cambridge. You know, I've just happened to know that there's a trick you can do for that as well. You can, if you go Cambridge, little bob, you get back to rounds. So that's really quite short, that one. But then you can just ring that a few times over and it'll come round in the middle, of course, but that's okay. You just want to ring Cambridge little bob, and off you go. Okay. So that's just an example of a touch. And someone mentioned splicing. Was it a single? Yes, I'll go back a bit. How was it? Here it was. Saying that you can splice St. Clement's and double Oxford. Why not? So if you say start with St. Clement's, you ring to here, and then you get to this bit in double Oxford, and then you can ring all this bit, and then back to St. Clement's, and you take this lead, and then double Oxford, and it's down here, and St. Clement's, and it's this lead. You get 5 leads doing that, which is a lot actually. Oops, sorry, which is quite a lot, and that's because they've got the same play spell order. So you see, that doesn't work with every method because Cambridge and little bob, they're the reverse of each other, which is why if you ring a lead of one and a lead of the other, it comes back. Or if you say St. Clement's and plain bob, if you ring a lead of St. Clement's and lead of plain bob, it gets back to rounds. I'll stop waffling now because I'm going far too much down the mad world of spliced, which is great fun, but you can keep it simple. You can call it plain, little, plain, that's all. So that is any questions on that before we move on? Or are you all terrified?
Pretty well done, James.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the end of the talk. That is indeed all. I haven't got a final slide. I'll leave it up in case I want to show anything again. But does anyone have any questions on play spells or what I've talked on about? If you want, I can do a full-on explanation of place notation.
If you do have any questions, obviously, please either unmute yourself or type into the chat box now.
But picking up on the earlier point where a person was finding it difficult to think of the play spells because it seems to split up, say, work like double dodging.
Yep.
I have the same issues, and I've run quite a lot of surprise minor and all that sort of stuff, quarters and things, but how do you think about it? So do you think of play spell only without it thinking of it as a double dodge, a dodge before and a dodge after the lead end?
I bit of both really. When I'm ringing, I'm sort of using all sorts of methods to be quite honest, to stay afloat, like a little bit of each. It's quite hard for me to explain what I think about whilst I'm ringing. I don't want to say it happens, but sorry, I just had a phone call coming in. I'll ignore this. Probably spam anyway. So yeah, I'll think of it as play spells and things like the play spell is here to here. But there will also be some. It won't be just there. It won't be completely distinct. And I will think, okay, this first dodge here, that's actually the first of a double dodge. So then when I carry on, then it's going to be another dodge, and off you go from there. So a bit of both, I feel.
So would you put the play spell in front of the double dodging thing? So in your mind, are you thinking principally about the play spells? And secondly, about the fact that, yes, it does happen that there's a dodge before and a dodge after?
I think I'd probably put the play spells is more important, and I just happen to do these two dodges next to each other.
Yeah,
probably. But that's just to me, as I've already said, it's as long as it works, whatever works for you is good. And if you have weird and wonderful ways of learning methods, then if you want to write them out in text to say what all the words are, then fine. As long as you find some way of learning them which works, and also which can then be understood by other ringers, so you can get put right. That is the final point about play spells, is that you might get shouted at third play spell now, because conductors use them. Conductors, when ringing, they'll know what the lead ends are, when the lead end is, and so they can. Well, this is how the conductors will speak, and unfortunately, it can be slightly unusual language. But the other ringers need to learn to understand the conductor rather than have the conductor try and translate for them as well, because they're already busy calling it. But yeah, it means if someone shouts at you, you're this play spell. That's why, and it's a handy thing to know, so they can then be put right easily.
I think when you're ringing it a method, you're ringing the play spell.
Yeah.
And you're thinking, okay, I'm going to become the next play spell.
Yeah.
Or what if a Bob's called? That will change it to another play spell.
Yeah.
What if the method is changed? Then that's a different starting point. So you've got to decide whether it just starts with a dodge or doesn't start with a dodge for that new method. And that's what you're thinking about all the time. You've got the what ifs of what's going to come next, depending on what's been said. Because sometimes it's every lead end it's going to change the method. Sometimes it's not.
Yeah, that's so. Yeah, so if you're dodging up with the treble, about to become second play spell by making a place. But if you're ringing spliced, it could be a number of methods. Or if there's a bob, it could be third play spell. So you know how to keep these things fresh in your mind. Now it's useful. So if there isn't a bob, then all treble dodging methods, the two, they all start with a dodge. So you've then got a few moments you can think, all right, which one's that? Oh yes, it's that one, and off we go. You do find that actually with a lot of spliced, the methods chosen will actually have a lot of similarities. And when splicing, they often start the same. So you get a few moments to think, right, what's that one again? And it's a little bit of breathing space. The really hard splice is where you start ringing London and stuff like that, and you just have to know it straight off, because you just go the other way, and that could fire out quite badly. Yes, right.
Super. So some of us are about to zoom off to another session, I think.
Yeah, if we have filled the hour, it's flown by, I must say. But
James, and that's because you've engaged us so well. So
thank you very much.
Thank you for the preparation you put into this talk on behalf of the Guild and all of us here. I'm going to stop recording. If people want to stay around and have a chat for a couple of minutes, that's fine. I'm going to pop into the other